today on The Scott Thompson Show on AM 900 CHML.
All right, it's been a long time since we haven't done a break about Donald Trump on this show, and with him and his ongoing tweets, it looks like that will continue. The latest news, in which there's pretty much a bombshell a day here, the U.S. Department of Justice has selected former FBI Director Robert Mueller to act as independent counsel in the investigation of course, Russian ties to the election campaign and Trump associates as well. To talk more about all of this, Elliot Tepper is with us, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, Carleton University, and is with us now. Hello, Elliot. How are you today?
I'm a little warm, but I'm fine, Scott.
Hey, you know what? We've been waiting a long time for this, Elliot. That's one way to look at it.
No complaints.
Your thoughts on former FBI Director Robert Mueller being now a part of this investigation? Do you have confidence in this investigation moving forward?
Well, my first thought about it is it's a major step forward, or a major step in this ongoing and evolving situation. This is kind of a transformative moment. We'll have to see where it actually goes. But until now, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter. There's a couple investigations going on, 3, I guess, through Congress and the FBI. But now we have an actual prosecutor with a lot of independence and a lot of authority to explore the possibilities of what did the Russians do, and were the Trump people involved, and anything else that might happen to come up. And if you need more authority, come back and ask for it. So this is really a major step.
Why would the U.S. Department of Justice do this now?
Department of Justice, the trigger for this apparently was, remember you said it's a bombshell a day. It's really almost every hour. But apparently the release of the information that the fired FBI Director Comey had been taking notes for the file on whatever he and Donald Trump spoke about over time, and that Donald Trump had asked him to please go light on General Flynn, don't proceed with the investigation. That could be considered obstruction of justice, and that in turn it seems to be what's happened. But there's a political side to it as well. The person who's actually set this up and did so under great cloud of secrecy was the acting deputy, the deputy attorney general, and he was acting in his capacity as attorney general because the sitting attorney general, Jeff Sessions, has to recuse himself on anything to do with Russia because he too was caught not reporting on some conversations he had, which is what got General Flynn in trouble, among other things. So the convoluted answer to this is a brand new deputy attorney general who felt he was hung out to dry by the Trump administration. He was being blamed for why Comey got fired. Well, we just asked him to look into it, said the Trump people originally, and he said that there was reason to fire Comey, and we just accepted his recommendation. And that's what all the surrogates for the president said, and he felt like he'd been badly used. And now comes along a way basically to say, look, I truly am a law-abiding, an official that does his job properly, and my proper job here is to appoint a special counsel.
Was the White House surprised by the Department of Justice's decision to do this?
Apparently they were taken flat-footed. There was no hint that it was coming. They initially responded in a very muted fashion, but the tweets have started saying this is the greatest witch hunt against a politician in the history of America, that kind of tweet. So they are basically in shell shock on this. A few things about this. We have to note that the actual role, the scope of this special counsel is for inquiring about illegality, not about inappropriate behavior. So theoretically, he could issue a one-sentence report later saying, I didn't find anything that would stand before a jury, so I'm not going to proceed with anything. That won't happen. He's, in fact, going to do a lot of things and report. To whom does he report? He reports back to this Deputy Attorney General. The Deputy Attorney General, in turn, receives it confidentially. And indeed, he's the only one who can actually fire this special counsel. But it hasn't been noticed much. The President can fire the Deputy Attorney General who's getting the report. So this is a very convoluted way of saying illegality is now hanging over the Trump administration in the form of a special counsel. And yes, this is a big deal. Is
this the greatest witch hunt ever?
No. You can Actually, that brought to mind a few other things. We actually had witch hunts, and the McCarthy era is one of the darkest eras in certainly American history, and it clouded politics in Canada and elsewhere. So, no, this is a president who feels that he's been sandbagged, that he's under assault. But let's continue some of the other implications. Another one is that Donald Trump is about to take his first foreign visit, and it's not to Canada, which is traditional, by the way. He perhaps thinks the day after you trigger an NAFTA review is not a good time to visit Canada. So he's going instead on a trip to the Holy Lands. He's going to the Vatican after going to Israel and also to Saudi Arabia, the Sunni heartland. And then he's going to the G7 and to NATO. This is a major foreign trip, and suddenly he's taking this trip while under a legal cloud, a legal investigation into his administration. So I think that should be noted. It's going to be a change of what was going to be his triumphal emergence as a world leader showing statesmanship. He's now clearly defensive, and we'll have to see how he handles himself.
When will we hear from Comey?
We don't know. Comey has been, somebody said he's the most wanted man in Washington now. The three investigations which have been ongoing are going to continue, so that the House and the Senate and the FBI investigations apparently are going to run parallel to anything that the special counsel will now do, and they in turn are after Comey, and he was asked to testify under certain circumstances, and he said, no, I won't come if it's going to be public, or if it's going to be private, whichever way it turned out. So we don't know when Comey will be called, but he certainly will be called by the by the special counsel, who has worked with him in the past. Now, remember, the special counsel was actually head of the FBI himself for a long time, and had worked with Comey during the Bush administration to stop basically illegal activities by the Bush administration under a long ago and now forgotten set of circumstances involving the Attorney General Ashcroft. So there's all that. There's another matter, Scott, that I think that we should talk about in regard to this. The two consequences of this appointment, or to put it differently, what really matters here? Does it matter if you have a special counsel or not? And I think there's two situations where it matters. Yes, if something comes out that's illegal or impeachable, well, those are two different things, then it can make a difference as to the success or failure of the Trump administration and even the continuation of it. But the only thing that ultimately matters is how this goes down in the American electorate, assuming that the president is not, and people around him are not affected by the investigation over illegal or impeachable offenses. So the final arbitrator of all of this is the midterm elections. That's coming. And will the Republican base, which has stayed rock solid for Donald Trump, finally abandon him over this? This is ultimately a struggle for power. And now we have a special counsel right in the middle of it.
Why would Comey not want to have his side heard at this point?
Well, the question is, you're asking me to get inside the head of the fired FBI director. Mm-hmm. The logic of the situation is that he wants to be heard.
Yeah.
It's the circumstances under which he would be heard, and he has to be extremely careful what he says, because we're now speaking about the possibility of the removal of the President of the United States, because one obstruction of justice is one charge that you could raise against him plausibly. I think that's a stretch personally, but I'm not a lawyer. But when you get to the House, if this drags on through the midterm elections and the Democrats take the House, then they could use obstruction of justice in a political sense to drop a charge sheet, and that is an impeachment proceeding. So Comey's a key player in all this. He has worked with this new special counsel before. They know each other. They, I think, have respect for the institutions of America in a way that they see are being challenged. The role of the FBI, the role of special counsels, and so forth. They, I suspect, are being under threat.
Going back a couple of days, you were saying about there seems to be a bombshell an hour here. Going back a few days, when Trump meets with Russian officials, at the White House. There's pictures taken by Russian photographers.
But only Russian photographers.
Only Russian photographers. There's, allegations floating around that Trump is revealing things that he shouldn't be revealing to these Russian officials. Putin's response is after Schumer asks for transcripts of the meeting, if they want transcripts, we can provide transcripts for them. What does it say when Putin offers transcripts from a meeting that was had at the White House?
Well, you could suggest he's having a lot of fun with this, but it's actually extremely serious, because at the heart of everything that we've been talking about is the Russian role in intervening in the American election, and that's one thing, item number one, irrespective of the Trump connection. That's item number one on the special counsel's list. He's going to check out what the Russians did or didn't do. The Russians allegedly are on a rampage here. They've interfered in the American election. They've been interfering in the French election. They're trying to weaken the EU, allegedly, and other elections across Europe. So the Russian connection here is crucial, central to everything that we're talking about. Who is the big winner? It's arguably the big winner is Putin. If indeed it's true that the Russians intervened to, in effect, draw questions over the legitimacy of an American electoral process, if that turns out to be true, then this is a remarkably successful, unexpectedly successful venture, because now the administration is mired into this mess, and America's government is at a halt, and various factions or branches of the government are involved in dealing with everything except policy. So the other big winner would be China, because China is saying if America does not wish to lead and cannot lead, we are both able and willing to lead. And they just held a big conference in Beijing saying, we have this great plan, basically what we would call a Marshall Plan for the world. We're going to lead globalization 2.0. So there are forces which are inimical to America's interest, and there are forces trying to replace America's role in the world, and all of this plays into it.
How do you think the White House or even Trump views comments by Putin like this?
One of the big mysteries all along, and that's one of the things we'll finally be getting to, we suspect, through this special counsel, is the mysterious role of Donald Trump and Putin in Russia. There's clearly been a soft spot by candidate Trump and now by President Trump toward the Russians and toward Putin, and whereas much of his own cabinet and certainly much of the American power elite thinks Russia is a hostile power. So why is he so solicitous of Russia? And that's one of the questions that may well come out.
Especially when it appears, whether it's the Russian officials commenting on the firing of Comey, whether it's Putin, what he says about the transcripts at the Oval Office. Obviously they're mocking America. Trump, the White House don't seem to care about that.
Well, as I say, they're having fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a very serious flip side to it. All of this is making mischief for America, if indeed they had something to do with setting it all in train, and that is the number one purpose of the special counsel, then this has been a remarkably successful, what would be called an active measures campaign of disinformation, trolling, hacking, and so forth, to interfere and to basically shake the nature of American, shake it, not shape it, so that, the American model doesn't look so great after all in the world. Take a look at ours.
Will, you talked about Trump going on his first foreign visit. Will this cool things off here, do you think, or do you think he'll just inflame overseas?
Well, let's take the attitude that could be taken by the Republicans, including the Trump White House, that what this really does is finally clear all questions relating to Russia off the table. They can say, no matter what comes up, saying, sorry, that's under investigation by the special counsel. Now let's talk about my policies on education, where we're going to cut the budget for public education. What about the Environmental Protection Act? We're cutting that. So there's a lot of Republican policy, and that certainly includes tax cuts, which are coming, but also anything on the environment and so forth. The Republicans have an agenda which they now can arguably say, look, let's get on with it, because anything having to do with what you're asking about is under special investigation. That's an optimistic view for the Republicans, because actually the White House, the Republican White House, is now so battered and so caught up with day-to-day, almost hour-by-hour scandal or questioning or self-inflicted harm that it's going to be hard to get the Republican agenda through. But on the face of it, you could say this is good news for the Republicans, so they can say, let's clear that off the table. It's going to be in the back burner. Let this thing grind on. Nobody will ever talk about it in public anymore. So while we get on with implementing what we were elected to do.
What does it say when Mitch McConnell stands up and said it would be nice if there was a little less drama at the White House?
Well, there's an irony to that because, as you know, the President Obama was called no drama Obama. And one thing we definitely have had with the election of Donald Trump is drama. This is Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan's moment to proceed with what has been long-standing policy regarding Republican priorities. And that certainly involves huge tax cuts, and the president wants an infrastructure program. But the entire nature of how America is governed is being shaped by the Republican agenda, which is arguably now being derailed because of the constant turmoil in the White House. But as I say, you could also say, well, no, now they have a chance to go ahead. They'll pass things, the president will sign it. And the Republican agenda, which has been going forward, will now continue. We'll have to see. Ultimately, Scott, this comes down to power. Will the Republican base stay with the Republican Party, or will there be a huge swing at the midterms? And that's a question for the American electorate.
Elliot Tepper has been with us, Senior Fellow, Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, Carleton University. Elliot, as always, thanks for the time. Much appreciated.
Certainly, Scott. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Want to hear more? Download the podcast on iTunes or Google Play and listen to The Scott Thompson Show, weekdays from noon to 3 on AM 900 CHML.